वीडियो की.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
How are you, mother?
I'm fine. I'm better. Very much better.
That's good. That's good. How's everybody else doing? I see
Good,
Khatwanga
Prabhu.
Prabhu. I
Jai
see
Shri Krishna ji.
Hare Krishna to everybody.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna to everybody.
Radha Vinod Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Nandimukhi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Everybody, Hare Krishna.
Madhu Mataji. Hare Krishna. Who else did I see? I see Shalu Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Oh, there you are. Hare Krishna. How are you?
Hare Krishna to everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Looks like Shama joined as well. Hare Krishna Shama.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
बहुत शर्मा रही हो आज. Hare Krishna Madhu Mataji. Mahajan Prabhu is there as well. Hare Bol. Shri Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Okay. So it's 8 o'clock.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Oh, Hare Krishna. How are you?
I'm good. We are good, Prabhu. Ashok Krishna Prabhu, he gave us the link to join the meeting.
Yes, he told me. You're most welcome. I'm glad you are here. And hopefully you like it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Prabhu, we got the opportunity to listen to one of your lectures from ISKCON Milton. So
You still came?
yes, Prabhu.
No, I'm just joking. Yeah, thank you. Yes. Yes, I remember doing that.
Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram.
Sinana Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
How are you?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, all glory.
Namrata, how are you?
Yeah, so far so good Prabhuji.
So far, so good. Okay, let's keep it that way. Ram Priya Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Melanie, you change your hairstyle. Hare Krishna.
Hi, Hare Krishna. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. I see all these bright, effulgent, smiling faces. Makes me feel even better. And Damodar is being shy as well. Oh, there you are. Damodar.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Rukmini Sudha, how are you?
Good Prabhuji, I'm good.
That's good, that's good. Draupadi Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Too. Always good to see you.
Same here, mother. Same here. All the way from Vancouver. I see Nand Kumar Prabhu joined as well. Hare Krishna, Nand Kumar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
That's good. Okay, so I'll tell you what. We'll start. Oh, Shuk Dev Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Okay, so I'm going to put the Pranami mantra on and see if somebody would like to lead it. Just give me 1 second, I'll share the screen. Okay. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Who would like to lead? Anybody wants to lead?
If nobody, I can do it.
Okay, Mataji, go ahead.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine
Namo विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने।
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे।
Namaste Saraswati Devi
गौरवाणी
Gauravani
प्रचारिणे
Pracharine
निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी
Nirvishesha
पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे।
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा।
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे
Krishna Hare Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishna
हरे
Hare
हरे
Hare Hare Ram
हरे
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare।
वांछा कल्पतरुपश्च कृपा सिन्धुभैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
की जय।
Thank you, Mataji. So I'd like to welcome everyone, and I want to especially welcome those of you who have joined us for the first time. And so most welcome to the program. I have written my phone number and my email address here because there's some people whose email I don't have. So what happens is that every week I send a reminder email and the title of the topic we're going to cover. So if I don't have your email, then I can send it to you. So if you wouldn't mind, send me an email. Just say Hare Krishna. That's it. That's all you have to say. And then I will have your email address, and I'll include you in my distribution list so that you can get, excuse me, all the emails. The other thing is that from time to time, I like to change the password because of all the hacking risks. And so if I don't have your email address, I cannot inform you. So please note my email address down if you don't already have it. And if you have not been receiving emails from me, then you know that your name is not on my list. So please send me your email, or an email, I should say, and I'll include you in the list. So from now on, you'd be there. Okay? Has everyone got it who needs to get it? Okay? All right. Thank you. I'll stop sharing the screen, and I'll come back to this. So are there any questions from last week? What we covered last week? Any questions or comments that you were not able to make last week that you would like to do now? Okay, if not, I'll proceed. And so what we'll do is we'll get started. So as you know, last week we discussed the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this week we'll discuss Advent of the version of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but this will be the version that we all have seen and read. Because you may recall that last week we sorry. Last we talked about the glories. Of course, this week we're going to talk about the advent of Srimad Bhagavatam, but this will be about the version of Srimad Bhagavatam that all of us have seen or read, because last week we covered many instances of Srimad Bhagavatam being narrated in different places, and we basically it's the same Bhagavatam. It's not this different, but how it was presented and if there were any different sequences, we don't have details of that. So, but this will be the one that we all have. Well, either have a copy of it or have seen it in the temple. Anyway, so that's the version we're going to talk about. So let's get started. Lord Krishna appears towards the end of which age, which yuga? Dwapar Yuga. And it's followed by which yuga? Kali Yuga, which is the one we are in. Now, you may or may not be aware that it's not the change of the yugas. It's not a calendar. Like there's no such thing as 31st December Dwapar Yuga. And the next day is 1st January Kali Yuga. It doesn't work that way. So basically what happens is that you have an overlap of somewhere around 250 to 300 years between the completion of one age and the start of the other age. So in other words, when the ages change, there's 250 years that you could say it's Dwapar and it's Kali Yuga at the same time. Okay, is that one clear? Okay, so then that's basically what happened this time. But as long as Lord Krishna was on this planet Earth, the Kali Yuga was not able to manifest its effects or its symptoms, whatever word you want to use. And therefore, it remained like Kali Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, but the signs were starting to appear. As we know that Kali Yuga is known as the age of what? Anybody? Age of? Quarrel. Age of
Quarrel and hypocrisy.
Correct. Age of hypocrisy and quarrel. Yes. Quarrel, yeah. So they were starting to show, basically the ignorance prevailed, the deviations from, the religious principles became prominent, and the quarrel and hypocrisy became the second nature for people in general. So all of you are familiar with the story of Mahabharata. So can somebody give me a few examples of the symptoms of Kali Yuga from the characters of Mahabharata?
Duryodhan. Abhimanyu being killed.
Duryodhan, you said. Okay, what was the characteristic?
He was all corrupted. He didn't.
All corrupted, okay. All right, sure. Okay, somebody else, any other person example?
Shakuni.
What was his characteristic?
Well, everything bad about him, whatever he started everything. He was the main reason. Yeah, cheating.
Envy, backbiting, agenda,
everything.
Personal agenda. Yeah, you name it. You're correct. Anybody else?
He was the first terrorist to kill India.
Dhritarashtra, absolutely. What was his characteristic?
Like selfish, only for his son, his family.
Yes.
He was ignorant, like his blind mind.
Yes.
Dushasan.
What was his characteristic?
Trying to disrobe a woman.
Okay, so greed, envy, whatever else. Yeah. Yes, correct.
Shishupal.
Hari bol. What did he do?
Lots of things you know better than us.
Lord.
No, that answer doesn't apply.
He was envious of Lord,
Envious
right
of
from
the
the
Lord.
birth.
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah, so you know that basically all these characters were showing the characteristic of Kali Yuga. From their behavior, from their nature, from their own characteristics. Okay, so, and then then the Lord left. And Kali Yuga said, full force, I can be here now. So it seemed like Lord Krishna left just when the world needed him most. In Kali Yuga, we need him most. But of course, Lord Krishna was very aware of the effect of the incoming age of Kali Yuga. And he foresaw that there'll be a great amount of misfortune that befalls upon the people. And they will need me. So he said, but I'm not here. So what he did was, this is the merciful Lord Krishna. He gave his entire self in the form of a book, which is called what?
Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita.
No, he had already given.
Bhagavatam.
Yes, Bhagavatam. It's also known as Bhagavad Purana. So Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Purana, same thing. Two names of the same book. And in Bhagavad Purana, it is described, it is as brilliant as sun. Why? What's the analogy here? Because as the sun removes the darkness, similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam removes the darkness of avidya or nescience in this age of Kali. Okay? And it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode. So you could think that when the Lord leaves this sunset, this darkness, but a new sun has arisen in the form of, that is Krishna in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, the book. Because when Krishna left, he took with him all the religion, the knowledge, etc., etc. It became real dark, real avidya. So Srimad Bhagavatam became the sun to remove that darkness. So, okay, so then what is Srimad Bhagavatam? Well, other Puranas and Srila Vyasadeva himself has described this as Grantharaj. Anybody knows what Grantharaj means? The literal meaning of the word?
The king of all the Granthas.
King of all the scriptures. Grantha is scripture. The king of all the scriptures is Srimad Bhagavatam. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's also a very wonderful verse that says, Nimna Ganam Yatha Ganga, Devanam Achito Yatha.
Vaishnavam Yatha Shambhu.
Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Idanim. What's the word? Puranam. That's right. Puranam Yatha. So it says that just like Ganga is the best among all the rivers, just like Lord Vishnu is the best among all the demigods, all the gods, just like Lord Shiva is the best among all the Vaishnavas, so this book, Srimad Bhagavatam, is the best among all the scriptures, among all the books. So this is Vyasadeva saying himself. And in a second, I'll talk about why it's such a big deal that Vyasadeva is saying that. Okay. All right. So once again, the book Srimad Bhagavatam specifically glorifies the transcendental qualities and pastimes of Lord Krishna. How many verses does it have?
18,000.
18,000. Yes. And it mainly comprises of conversations. Conversations between great personalities like, Maitreya Muni, Vidura, Uddhava, Lord Krishna, Arjun, Duryodhan, Yudhishthir, Narad Muni, on and on and on. The conversation between great personalities. It also talks about different topics like creation, material manifestation, annihilation, and administration of different kings in various dynasties, the Sun dynasty, the Moon dynasty, and all those kind of things. Description of various incarnations of the Lord and his devotees, and Krishna's pastimes and incarnation pastimes, on and on and on. This is what basically has. And because it has only the transcendental material, it's known as the spotless Purana. What does spotless mean?
No faults.
No faults, no blemishes. Which means nothing that is nothing that has any kind of defect is in it. So there's no cheating religion. It doesn't talk about dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. It doesn't talk about material gains. It doesn't talk about how to become rich, all those kind of things. It only talks about one thing. What is that?
Krishna Prema.
Krishna Prema, exactly right. Okay, so this is why it's called spotless Purana. There's no blemishes in this. And because it talks about Krishna Prema, it shows you how to lead there. It talks about the devotees of Krishna. It's very dear to the Vaishnavas. Okay, because they love to hear about Krishna and his pure devotees. And anybody who seriously tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants Srimad Bhagavatam with devotion, becomes completely liberated. And that's a purport. So I'm sorry, that's a verse in 12th canto that talks like that. Okay. We also mentioned last week that Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the Vedic tree. And it talks about Krishna Tattva, Bhakti Tattva, and Rasa Tattva. So Tattva means the truth and the essence of Krishna, about devotional service, and the mellows that Krishna enjoys. It talks about those three things. And it teaches us devotion and it gives us a taste for devotion. So both things. And as we know, the devotional service is actually personification of the mellows between the devotee and Krishna. Right? You could even say it's a personification of the essence and the mellows of devotional service. Okay, makes sense? So then the next question should be, well, okay, that's great. I want to read it. Is there any restriction? Is there any recommendation on how we should read it? You know, what is it? Anybody wants to help me? What's the correct process, approach to read Srimad Bhagavatam?
There is no process that, just if you have a desire, you don't need any qualification. What you need is just faith and Shraddha, and then you read it.
Okay, so that is correct. What about the process? Any specific process we must use?
Nirmatsaranam.
Huh?
Nirmatsaranam.
No. I'm talking about the process. Like it's a
the
sequence.
process is to start from the beginning, from first canto.
Exactly.
And if possible, we should hear from a devotee.
Yes, absolutely right. Pure devotee, actually.
And the mood should be like Parikshit Maharaj. The listeners.
Absolutely. So Parikshit Maharaj was declared to be the best listener. Yeah. And Shuk Dev was considered to be the best
teacher.
Speaker. Right? And the verse that Prahlad Maharaj talks about the 9 processes of devotional service, he says, Parikshit Maharaj achieved perfection simply from hearing. So that's what we mean, that the perfection of hearing. Okay, all right. So, and the reason, so I should talk about one other thing. We should, as Nitya said, start from Canto 1. So we should read the first 9 cantos before we go to the 10th one. All about the how great the Lord is, about his incarnations, and all the other topics that the first 9 chapters cover. Because if we don't do that, we cannot relish Krishna's pastimes. But what happens is, and I'm sure you all have experienced this, that when you're listening to it, it's great. As soon as the speaker stops, Arpajalpa starts. Right? So the example is given, and I really like this example, is suppose you have a pot, a pitcher. It's full of holes. And you go to the river and you fill it up with water. What happens by the time you get home?
Natali.
Drains out.
Empty.
It all comes out. So is there a way to keep the water in this pot that's full of holes? What is that?
Immersed in the river itself.
Immerse it and leave it immersed.
Yes.
That's the only way you can keep the water in this pot. Any scientists in this group who can confirm that, yes, I, with the authority given to me for my scientific qualification, I prove the fact that, yes, the water will not fall out if it's immersed in the water, otherwise it will come out. Anybody want to say that? Okay, if you don't say that, I'll say it. I'm an engineer and a scientist, so I can say it.
You are the authority.
I'm the authority, yes. In that regard, anyway. Okay. By the way, just my sense of humor. Okay. So then it's also defined that the first canto and the second canto are what's the word? Equated to or compared to the two lotus feet of the Lord. So the first, or represent, maybe that's a better word. The first two cantos represent the lotus feet of the Lord. Cantos 3 and 4 represent his thighs. Canto 5 represents his navel. 6, his chest. 7 and 8, his arms. 9, his neck. 10, his smiling face. And 11 is his forehead. And 12 is the crown. I'm sorry? Any questions or comments there?
Where's the 12th?
12 is the crown, the crown on the top. So basically, they have same thing. So same thing applies when you take darshan of the Lord. We're not supposed to go and instead look at his face. We're supposed to start with the lotus feet and then slowly move up. So you go with the feet, then you go with the thighs and the navel and the arms and on and on. And at every step, we're looking intently and with attention. So you know by the time you finished it, you know what ornaments they are wearing, what color they are, and all that. I tell you, do an experiment. When the COVID is over, do an experiment. Go to the temple with a whole bunch of people there, and as soon as the doors close or the curtain is pulled, whatever the case is, ask somebody, so what color was the outfit that Lord is wearing? 50% cannot tell you. I'm talking about the whole outfit. I'm not even talking about ornament. I'm not talking about whether the necklace had 3 strings or 2 strings. I'm not talking about that. Just what was the color of the outfit? Because we don't pay attention. So similarly, when we study or we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, we should pay full attention. It's not like, oh, I have to lie down or I have to multitask. I know so many people who say, I won't turn my video on because I'm multitasking. Well, fine. But then you're not getting the benefit of the time you're investing in this stuff. Okay, all right. So let's talk about how did Srimad Bhagavatam manifest. So I'm going to go really back about the time, and I'm going to entitle it, maybe entitle is not the right word. I'm going to say that the manifestation or the creation of Srimad Bhagavatam started with the despondency of Srila Vyasdeva. He was very despondent. Just like Gita came out because Arjun was despondent. So Srimad Bhagavatam came out because Vyasdeva was despondent. So who's Vyasdeva? Haribol? Who was Vyasdeva?
Parasar Rishi's and Satyavati's son.
Okay.
Literary incarnation.
Incarnation of, yeah.
The literary incarnation of the Lord. Author of all these books, yes. So, what was that his real name?
Krishna Dvaipaya and Vyas.
Right. So, what is Vyas? Vyas is a title. Right? And every Dwapar, there's a different Vyas. By the way, this Vyas, Krishna Dvaipaya, is the 3rd generation Vyas. His father, Parashar Muni, was Vyas also. Way before. And his father, grandfather that is, was Vyas also. So this is like almost like a dynasty. But anyway, so it's a title. His name was Krishna Dvaipaya Vyas. Okay. Excuse me. So basically the name Vyas is reserved for people who expand the knowledge of the Vedas. Okay. So now this Vyasdev had already completed 1 Veda and then divided into 4 as we talked about last week. And then, excuse me, then he supplemented it because he figured that even with 4 Vedas, people cannot understand it. They cannot digest it. So supplemented with the 108 Upanishads. And then to further explain it, he also wrote 17 Puranas. And then he summarized it in the Vedanta Sutra. It's like conclusion of the Vedas. And then he had another realization. He said, the people, the men in the Vaishya, which is the mercantile community, and Shudra, the labor community, are not allowed to study the Vedas or the Puranas. And the women are not allowed either. He said, I need to have something for them. So then he wrote what? Mahabharata for these people, right? So after doing all that, 17 Puranas, 4 Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, Mahabharata, he was still not satisfied. Not just not satisfied, actually he had a deep sense of dissatisfaction. And he started saying to himself, he started reflecting, what is the cause of this turmoil I feel in my heart? He just couldn't get it. So he sat in his ashram. Where was his ashram? Anybody knows?
Badrika Ashram near Saraswati.
Badrika Ashram, absolutely right. So why did he get the name Badrika Ashram? So essentially, it's located in a place called Badrinath, which is in northern India in the Himalayan range. And actually, the Badrinath is the place of meditation by Lord Nar and Narayan. So they are performing the austerities even today. But when they started performing the austerities, Mother Lakshmi said, wait a minute, I need to help my husband. So she manifested herself as a berry tree or a bear tree in Hindi to provide them adequate shade. Now, Badri in Sanskrit means bear or berry. I should say bear tree, the tree of bear or berry. So, just like Lord Narayan is the husband of Lakshmi and is known as Lakshminath, so he now got the name Badrinath. So that's the name of the Lord himself. And as I said, they're still performing all their austerities, but they are performing austerities on 2 mountains known as Nar Mountain, Nar Parvat, and Narayan Parvat. And Vyasdev's ashram is actually in a nearby cave. It's known as Vyas Gufa. Gufa means cave. So Vyas Gufa means cave belonging to Vyasdev. And another interesting fact, just below it is the river Saraswati. And it's falling like a fall, like Niagara Falls. And it meets Ganges, the river Ganga, near where Vyasdev was meditating. But it was coming down with so much force that it made very loud noise. I mean, if you've been to Niagara Falls, you know how noisy it is. And it was disturbing his meditation. So very politely, very nicely, Vyasdev said to Saraswati, please either be quiet or go somewhere else, move somewhere else. But she didn't listen. Well, Vyasdev got angry and he cursed him to disappear. And has anybody been that place? If you go there, you will see that's coming down and suddenly it's not there anymore. It just literally disappears.
Yes, Badrinath.
And there is no noise. There's no sound coming. So that's from the curse of Vyasdev to Mother Saraswati. So that's why those of you who are familiar with Prayag in Allahabad or Allahabad, this Triveni, what's the word? Confluence, yes. Confluence of the 3 rivers. Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. But you don't see Saraswati anymore. So even though it's still called Triveni, the confluence of 3 rivers, one is Gupta River. Gupta River means hidden river. Hidden because of the curse of Vyasdev.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so just a side story. Okay, so anyway, coming back to Vyasdev. So as he was meditating and really feeling very disturbed, here's his spiritual master. Who's that? Narad Muni, the son of Lord Brahma. He appeared. And that should not be surprising. We often, among our God brothers and sisters, we talk about how our Guru knows everything. He knows everything about us. And he knows the right question to ask. He knows where you should be concerned. And he knows what we are doing. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Today we don't have time, otherwise I can give you so many examples, my personal examples where my Guru Maharaj knew what I was going through. I just call up or whatever.
Can you give one example? Because I didn't actually know that.
Yes, so I'll give you an example, actually a very good example. About 7 years ago, I had a heart attack. Nobody knew. Three or four days later, I was coming back from the hospital. I suddenly get a phone call from a godbrother. His name is Bhakti Yoga. He said, Guru Maharaj wants you to call him. He called me and he's asking about you, how you doing. Now you tell me, this is totally from out of the blue. Why would you call somebody and say, how's Rupanuga's health? How's Rupanuga doing? Just when I'm having this issue. And trust me, I can give you many more examples, just from personal experience. So they know. So Narad Muni knew that my disciple Vyasdev is in trouble. He's having some issues. He's not at peace. So he showed up. So of course, Vyasdev got up and offered him his obeisances. And Narad Muni said, hey, Vyas, how come you're looking so despondent? And he said, you of all the people should be so happy and proud, given everything you have accomplished. So what's going on? And Vyasdev, I guess, was really despondent. So he gave a, I don't know if sarcastic, but very interesting response. He said, my dear Guru Maharaj, you travel to all the planets. You've been blessed by the Lord to go anywhere you want. So why don't you go inside my heart and look what's going on? So Narad Muni smiled and he said, my dear Vyas, although you have shown great mercy by putting all these Vedas and Puranas into written form, but my dear, you have failed. You have failed to specifically and repeatedly glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, who is the ultimate benefactor of all living beings. So let me repeat this. He said, my dear Vyas, although you have shown this great mercy by putting Vedas and the Puranas, etc., in writing, but you have not specifically and repeatedly glorified the Supreme Personality of God, Lord Krishna. He is our ultimate benefactor. He is our ultimate well-wisher. You have not done that. And then he said, you have also not explained the devotional service of Lord Krishna in your books. They're missing. So Vyasadeva protested. He said, but Guru Maharaj, I have given Bhagavad Gita, whole Bhagavad Gita, which is nothing but the words of Lord Krishna. But Narad Muni said, yes, but you have not described the pastimes and the qualities and form of Krishna, which are so sweet and so satisfying to the soul. Like you will see, you can say a lot of wonderful, amazing things about Bhagavad Gita, but you won't call it a sweet document. And then he said, you've written all these Vedas, and what have you done there? You talked about Karma Kanda, you talked about Gyan Kanda, which actually lures people towards self-gratification or a desire for liberation, which is another kind of self-gratification. You have not given a scripture that describes Krishna's pastimes, qualities, the beautiful, wonderful form in sufficient amount. And that was the key, in sufficient amount. And then he said, any literature that does not do that, which is describe the pastimes, the qualities, the form of Lord Krishna, is like the place of pilgrimage for the crows. Now, try to imagine the place of pilgrimage for the crows. What would it be full of? No. What would the place
Dead body.
be? Huh?
What is dead bodies?
Okay, that's one. All the garbage, right?
Garbage.
All sorts of garbage. So saying any document which does not describe the form, the quality, and the person of the Lord, is basically garbage. Even if it is greatest document in terms of the grammar and, you know, beautiful poetic language and all those kind of things, it's garbage. Because it creates the mood of enjoying the results of one's work instead of pushing one to serve him. So he's sending people away from the Lord, not towards the Lord. And then Narada Muni said, please understand that we are the servants of Krishna. And our only role or dharma is to give Krishna the enjoyment of our work or whatever we offer. Yat karoshi, yat asnati, yat juhasi darasya. It's all for Krishna. And we are not to compete with Krishna for enjoyment. So when we try to enjoy, what are we doing? We enjoy our, you know, our family, our money, our property, our position. What I'm saying, Krishna, you stay away. Let me enjoy this. We're competing. It's Krishna's to enjoy. We're saying, no, 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 no. Let me enjoy. So we're competing with Krishna. And Narada Muni said, don't encourage people to compete with Krishna. Encourage them to serve Krishna. So he said, if we give pleasure to Krishna as his servant, then we automatically receive pleasure. So what's the problem? And he gave the example. He said, think about the cook, or I should say a cook of a king. What does the cook do other than cook? Other than
Cut vegetables.
Sorry?
Please.
Cut vegetables.
No, I mean, cutting is that's all part of cooking. So other than cook, what is
Associating with the king.
I'm sorry?
Associating with the king.
I'm sorry, Melanie, I can't hear you.
Like being in the king's presence.
He's enjoying in the king's palace, you know, equally.
Yes, absolutely right. Yes, that's one thing.
So,
but the second
Tasting
thing,
before king eats
so
right?
Pleasing by serving.
Yes, he is. But I'm talking about his own enjoyment. Something for his own.
He's
So what
tasting
Melanie
before king is eating.
I'm sorry?
He's tasting before king eats.
Exactly right. So he eats it before the king eats. Right? And he eats everything that the king does. So he's got the same enjoyment that the king does. But his mood is serving the king. So Narada Muni said, if your mood is serve Krishna, you'll enjoy everything just like Krishna does. So what's the problem? Right? So as long as the mood is right, you will enjoy it anyway. So he said, I'm sorry, I should say, Vyasadeva has said that, but I've written about Krishna. And Narada said, yeah, but very little, just not enough. And then I was listening to a class by Sarvabhaum Prabhu. And he told a story of a man who went to the restaurant or a restaurant, and he ordered a vegetable, a very interesting vegetable. He said, I want a vegetable of grape and kaddu. Kaddu is squash, by the way. And it looks like a small pumpkin. All the taste is different. And the grape you all know. So he said, I want a vegetable of grape and kaddu. And the waiter said, yeah, no problem. And he said, well, so how much grape and how much kaddu do you put? He says 50-50. So the customer said, yeah, that sounds good. Okay, go ahead, cook and make it. So he brought it and he saw the dish and practically no grapes. All he said was kaddu. So he asked the waiter, I thought you said it's 50-50. And the waiter said, yes, sir, it is 50-50. The man said, well, how? I just look like it. All I see is kaddu. And the waiter said, yes, sir, but it was 50-50. There's one grape and one kaddu that we put in this. Right? So that's the point Narada Muni is making. Yes, you did, but not enough. Your 50-50 is not good enough. Right? So I think when he said that, then Narada Muni understood that in his sabji, there are not enough grapes. Grapes is Krishna, And all there is Kaddu, which is Karmakanda and Jnanakanda. So now Vyasadeva got it. And then Narada Muni said, meditate on Krishna and rest will come to you automatically. And then to further encourage Vyasadeva, Narada Muni gave his life story for the last 3 births. In the first birth, first of these 3 births, he was a Gandharva. Does everyone know what Gandharva is?
For the god, demigods.
He's a very special demigod. My wife is just saying. Yeah, so he basically is a dancer, he's an instrument player, he's a singer, very good at that, very good at music. A very special kind of Gandharva. So he was a Gandharva with the name of Upabhrashta. And so once he got invited by a bunch of sages to Kirtan. And he came. Oh, sorry. The other thing about Gandharvas is that they're surrounded by beautiful women. And they're very much into women. So Upabhrashta was there at this Kirtan, which had many women also. So he got busy trying to impress the women. And he started singing basically demigod bhajans in the tunes that today you would call the Bollywood tunes. So imagine doing Bhangala at Kirtan. So that's what Upabhrashta, the Gandharva, was doing. So after a little while, the sages said, got to stop this. We want you to chant the glories of Krishna. And he basically refused because he was so busy wanting to and trying to impress the women there. So they cursed him. The sages cursed the Gandharva. They said, you're acting like a low-class person. So go take a birth in a low-class family. So he fell from the position of a Gandharva to a low-class family and was born in a very poor family. Excuse me. And soon after his death, after his birth, his father died. So his mother was earning her livelihood by performing menial services for people, the higher class people in the neighborhood, and living in a hut. But she was very fortunate because every Chaturmasya, we just finished 2 months ago, actually 1 month ago, Chaturmasya, which is 4 months of rainy season. And in those days, and some people even today, they don't travel in the rainy season. In India, I'm talking about. So all these sages, the Bhakti Vedanta sages, they will stay near her place and they gave her an opportunity to serve them. So she was serving these sages very sincerely and with great devotion. And when Narada Muni he was Narada Muni at that time, when this boy was 5 years old, he also got an opportunity to serve these sages by cleaning their plates, as well as a place where they were honoring Prashadam for the entire stay of the 4 months. And actually, Narada Muni described himself to Vyasadeva, said, I was a boy who was not naughty. I was not interested in playing games. I didn't talk much. I didn't talk any nonsense. I simply engaged in the service of these sages. And then once, by their permission, I got an opportunity to taste the leftovers, which ISKCON terminology is known as Mahamaha. And he said, I also received some instructions from the sages, which I really internalized even at the age of 5. And he said one night, his mother went to milk a cow. Unfortunately, she got bit by a snake and left her body. He says, I was left alone, but I actually thanked Krishna for his mercy because she was always worrying about me. And therefore I had to worry about her. But now I was free. Now I had an opportunity to focus on my devotional service. So he said, I walked to the forest, deep into the forest, and I sat down and started meditating upon Krishna. He says, very soon, Lord Krishna appeared in my heart, but only for a very brief moment. He said, after that, I tried again and again. I kept trying harder and harder, but he never came back. I was getting extremely upset. I was desperate, and I didn't know what to do. Suddenly, I heard this voice from the sky, the Akashvani. And it said, you're not mature enough yet to see Krishna because you still have some contamination. So keep trying it, as it was known as sadhaka, which is people like us. Keep trying to perform devotional service. And said, Lord Krishna appeared in your heart briefly, simply to increase your eagerness to see him again. So keep trying. So we are doing in our group on Wednesdays, we started Gopi Gita. And the one term that kept coming up was Krishna Darshan Lalasa, which is the intense desire to see Krishna. So this is basically saying we want to increase your Krishna Darshan Lalasa, the desire to see Krishna. So keep trying harder and harder. Narada said, well, I said, great. So I'll keep trying. Yeah, but I could not forget. I just could not forget the pleasure I received from seeing Krishna the first time, that first time. He said, I kept trying harder and harder and harder to get a second opportunity, but I never got it. After some time, I left my body, and then I appeared as a son of Brahma, and I was given the name Narada. That's my third birth. He says, the Lord was very pleased. He gave me a veena. This is Lord Krishna. He gave Narada the veena that is placed. And the Lord also blessed him to be able to go anywhere, any universe, any planet, spiritual world, material world, doesn't matter. Wherever you like, you can go. But the Lord encouraged him to preach to the fallen souls. With that, Narada Muni blessed Vyasadeva, wished him good luck, and left while doing what? What he always does.
Harinam.
Playing the veena.
Narayan.
Narayan and playing the veena. So he left. Okay. So now Vyasadeva said, okay, fine, I have my instructions. And like any good disciple, he sat down. So, another question for you. If I take a sports analogy, I don't know how many of you want to confess to being interested in sports, but I am. Maybe not to the same degree I used to be, but still. Anyway, so all teams in any sport have coaches. So this is a true story. There was a coach of a baseball team, the professional baseball team. And all these professional baseball teams have these junior teams. They call them farm teams, because that's where they're developing players to move to the professional league. And they have their own coaches, but every once in a while, the coach from the professional team will go and visit these farm teams and coach for a day or two or whatever and come back. So some manager had just come back from his visit to a farm team, and a reporter asked him, so, sir, how do you know which player in the farm team will actually make it to the professional ranks? And his answer was, the player who continues to follow my instructions after I leave. He said, because 99% of them just go back to their old habits. Is that one person who continues to follow my instructions. And that's the person who makes it to the professional league. So that's the definition of a good disciple. When the guru is physically present, what's the big deal if you're behaving properly? It is how you behave, how you act, what you do when he's not watching. Physically watching, that is. That's what counts. So Vyasadeva was a good disciple. He said, I will do what my guru told me. And he meditated upon the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And eventually Vyasadeva saw Krishna. But he did not just see Krishna. He saw Yogamaya, his internal potency, and Mahamaya, the external potency, standing behind him. And he saw all the living entities who were totally under the control of Mahamaya and doing all sorts of anarthas. Anarthas by being very busy, worrying about their body and their bodily needs, but not about their soul. And that's hurting themselves. They didn't understand, the living entities, that the body is given to us by Maya, Mahamaya, Prakriti. But we are not this body. Rather, we are the soul, who's part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, worrying about the body and the bodily needs, rather than worrying about the soul and its needs, is like worrying about the cage in which you put a bird, but not the bird in the cage. Everyone, I'm sure, have heard this example. So these days, people are worrying about having a good house, a good car, and good clothes, which are all for the body, but nothing for the soul. That is anartha I'm referring to. You know, in this material world, we have our priorities and our perspectives backwards. For example, if I ask you, what is more important, a house or a person? So this is the owner. So owner is more important, right? Than the house. What is more expensive?
House.
There you go. There you go. I can take any example like that with this car or any example you can take. It's always something that's less important is more expensive because we're putting more value on what is less important.
But the person is more valuable, Prabhuji.
Person is what?
More valuable.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
But people don't see that. So Vyasdev said to himself, I get it now. I understand what the problem is. And he said, I have to help these people. So by the grace of Lord Krishna and his Guru Narad Muni, Vyasdev wrote the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutras. And that is Srimad Bhagavatam. So basically, Srimad Bhagavatam, as we know it, appeared at Badrikashram, the ashram of Vyasadeva, at the end of Dwapar and beginning of Kali Yuga. Okay, so now we know the timing, the place, and the source of Srimad Bhagavatam. Any questions? I'm going to stop. I've been talking a long time. Stop for a second. See if anybody has any questions.
Prabhu, you mentioned that Vyasdeva uppers every Dwapar Yuga. That means in Brahma's 1000 year, there are 1000 Vyasdevas?
That is correct. That is correct. And offline, if you want the names of the last 27 Vyasadevas, I have it. I gave you 2 or 3 already, but I can give the rest.
So it doesn't change it with the demigod changing. It doesn't change it.
No.
Okay.
No, different frequency.
Different frequency.
Okay, any other? Okay, all right. So then let's talk about, as I said.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So does each Vyasadeva write something?
Say again, sorry?
Does each Vyasadeva write something?
Yeah,
Like
very good question. So yes. So basically then every Dwapar, the Vedas kind of get rewritten. You know, it's the same material. But what happens is, what's the time lag between one Dwapar and the next Dwapar? Anybody knows?
4.32 million.
Correct. That's correct. So 4.32 million years go by between one Dwapar and the next Dwapar. So things get destroyed. And information goes away. You know, it just completely goes upside down. Right? So it needs to be rewritten. So yes, that's what happens.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good question, Radhika. Any other questions?
What happens to the demigods at the end of the age?
Well, so demigods, how does it work? So there's another concept of manus, right? So every manu has 71, the 4 yugas, Dwapar, Satyuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. 71 of each of those. So 71 times 4.3 million years. That's the age of the manu. So when manu changes, the Indra changes, the Saptarishis change, and so forth. So some demigods change at that time. Some other demigods have the lifespan of about 3.6 million years. These are not so important ones, and they change every 3.6 million years. So the different demigods have different lifespans.
They reincarnate, or do they take birth as another demigod, or what?
No. So basically, they come back as a human being with a choice of how they want to spend their life. Like do they want to become devotees? Do they want to become the sense enjoyers? Whatever. That free will is there. Okay. Anybody?
Prabhuji, they get into the cycle of, they get into those karma cycle as well then.
Well, so
right?
they are because of the karma demigods. The cycle has not stopped for them.
But when they are in human body, then it's like, I don't know how better it is then for them.
Well, so actually the demigods in the age of Kali, the demigods wish they were humans. Why?
Yeah.
Because as humans, they can simply chant and go home back to Godhead.
True.
Demigods are so busy enjoying, they don't have the same incentive to do that.
Yeah.
So they actually get envious of human beings on earth in the age of Kali.
Okay. Yeah.
Draupadi Mara, you look like you want to ask a question.
Yeah, well, were they human beings to begin with that became demigods, or?
Yes. So you become a demigod only when, as a human being, you perform very pious activities. And you do that with the expectation of becoming a demigod. So you become a demigod. Which, by the way, in Krishna's eyes, not a very good thing. But if that's what you want, go ahead. Drink your own poison, as he says.
And when they're demigods, they want to come back as humans.
They will, yes. The difference, again, another difference is, as demigods, you do not accumulate karmas. Demigod yoni is bhog yoni, which means you only enjoy the result. You don't accumulate any. Only as human beings you accumulate.
Indra changes every one manvantara.
Correct.
Okay.
So, like Bali Maharaj is slated to be another Manu, right? Ashwatthama is going to be the next Vyas, believe it or not. No, so on.
Purandar is going to be the next Indra.
I'm sorry?
Purandar is going to be like the next Indra.
I thought Purandar was the current Indra. No?
Oh, I thought it was next one.
Prabhuji.
Haji.
So when they come as human beings, now they're accumulating karma, so they can get lower birth as well in
Absolutely
that
right.
case.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. That's why I said they have a choice.
So Prabhuji, when the demigods have the knowledge that Krishna is the supreme, and they are much more elevated than what we are, so then why is it that they cannot perform devotional service, or why they are only enjoying all the time? What makes them do that?
Bhagavad Gita 2:44. It says, Bhogaishwar prasaktanam tayaha prachetsam vyavsayatka buddhi samadhana vidhite. They're so busy enjoying their life, it's very difficult for them to become pure devotees. When you have that kind of opulence, it's very difficult. Mother Kunti said the same thing. Janmasha Shudshrivi. You cannot develop feelings when you have so much wealth. You just can't do it. Okay, let's move on back to the story. Otherwise, we run out of time. Okay. All right. So let's talk about, fine. It got written. We know when and where. Now, how did it get communicated to the general public? How did we hear about this? So let's talk about that. Okay. So all of you know that Krishna came before the battle of Kurukshetra started to Hastinapur, where the Pandavas were living. And he stayed there for a long time. Even after the war, he stayed for a long time. And then finally, he got ready to leave for home. Where was his home at that time? Dwarka, yes. Krishna. So he said goodbyes and all that. And actually, I think a few times was not allowed to leave, but finally everybody said, that's okay, fine, it's time. And he got on his chariot and he was ready to depart. When he saw Uttara, who was Uttara?
Parikshit Maharaj.
Mother.
Mother.
At
Mother
that
of Parikshit Maharaj.
Yeah, but at that
Abhimanyu's
time,
wife.
yeah. So my wife is saying Arjun's daughter-in-law, Abhimanyu's wife. So correct. Okay, and Parikshit Maharaj's mother, so of course would be mother at that time. So she came running towards Lord Krishna, and she was wearing white sari because she was a widow at that time. Abhimanyu having been killed, and she was shouting a wonderful verse that's in Bhagavatam. Pai pai mahayogin dev dev jagat pate na anyam tad abhyam pashye yatra mrityu parasparam. It's first canto, chapter 8, text 9. She said, no one other than you, my Lord Krishna, can save me. Not even these Pandavas. And that was her, what we call Akantaki Bhakti, that one-pointed, one-focused devotional service towards Krishna. She was totally convinced, like no doubt in her mind, only Krishna can save her. Only Krishna can give her the freedom from fear. After she came near, she pointed the arrow of fire coming towards her. And she said, oh Krishna, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about the baby in my womb. He's the only continuation of the dynasty of the Pandavas. If he's finished, the entire dynasty is finished. And just the way she was saying, the sincerity in her voice and her attitude towards the whole thing, it moved Krishna. It actually moved her. And he appreciated her sentiments a lot. He came down from the chariot and he entered her womb and he protected the baby with his Sudarshan Chakra. Now, who can tell me the name of the baby when he was born? Not Parikshit. When Parikshit was born, what was his name?
Something Vishnu, something like that. I forgot.
Very good. Yes, very good. Vishnu Rag.
Vishnu Rag, yes.
Yeah. So basically means pat him. Rukmini Radha, pat him on the back. What was I saying? Yes, so his name was Vishnu Rag. He got his name Parikshit later on because as he was growing up, he was constantly thinking about the personality he saw in the womb. He was looking, examining everybody he met, their face to see if that's Krishna. If that is Krishna, if that is Krishna. So the examination means Pariksha. So he got the nickname Parikshit because he was examining the face of everyone he ever met to see if that is Krishna. But otherwise, his real name was Vishnu. Okay, anyway. So, right from the beginning, it was very clear that this is not an ordinary person. It's not an ordinary personality. There's a naming ceremony the Brahmins do. When they were doing that, they also, making his horoscope to predict what is going to be like. And they said some amazing things. They said he'll be like Lord Ram in being true to his promise. He'll be like King Shibi in giving charity. He'll be like his grandfather Arjun in archery. He'd be irresistible like fire and unsurpassable like an ocean. He'll be strong as a lion. He'll be kind like Lord Shiva. And as good as Lord Krishna by following in his footsteps. And he said he'll be a staunch devotee of Krishna like Prahlad Maharaj. But interesting, Rashi, too noisy. Sorry. And they said that, they forecast his death. They said he'll die by a snake bird's bite. So they forecasted when he was born. That's going to happen. Anyway, so a few years after this incident, Lord Krishna wrapped up his pastimes on this planet and went home to Goloka Vrindavan. When the Pandavas found out, they were very despondent, and they also decided to retire. So they anointed Vishnuratha or Parikshit Maharaj to the throne, who by now was a young man, very well trained in the scriptures and the military arts. And he became very powerful and a very good ruler who really cared for his subjects like his own children. And of course, they loved him in return. He was a very powerful, highly moral ruler, and he ran his kingdom according to the injunctions of the scripture, which was quite common, by the way, in those days. So, how powerful was he? How much did he care for his subjects? So there's another story about that. Now, who was included in the subjects of the king in those days? Anybody? Who was
Sorry,
included?
what?
All living entities?
Who was in? Yes. My question, Damodaran, was who's included in the subjects of the king? And somebody said all living entities. It's not just human beings. The cows, the other animals, the insects, everybody was his subject, and he cared for all of them like his own children. So once upon a time, that sounds like a fable, but anyway, once upon a time, he was going on his chariot, and he saw Kali Yuga personified. You can say master of Kali Yuga, who was actually lower than a Shudra, but he was disguised as a king, in the dress of a king. And he was hurting the legs of a cow and a bull. And he understood cow is actually Mother Earth, and bull is Dharma, the religion. So he at once caught the master of Kali Yuga and was going to deal him some unbelievable punishment. Like, how dare you torture my subjects? So basically the background of that story is that once Dharma, in the form of a bull, met Mother Earth, who was in the form of a cow. But Mother Earth in the form of a cow was crying. So the bull asked, why are you crying? Are you crying because my 3 legs are broken and I'm standing on 1 leg only? By the way, does anybody know what are the 4 legs on which Dharma stands?
Tapasya, Satya, Pavitrata, and Daya.
That's 3.
Satya, Pavitrata, Daya, or cleanliness, austerity.
Okay, so there's a lot of people in this group who do not understand Hindi. So let's use the English words, please.
English में आता है. So cleanliness, austerity, truth, mercy.
Okay, yeah, my wife was saying the same thing in the back. So those things are the 4 legs. So what legs remaining in the age of Kali?
Truth.
The truth, which is hard to believe, by the way. The age of Kali. So that was a very weak leg. So no wonder that the bull was having serious difficulty in standing up, because the only remaining leg was very poor, very weak. And he says, are you crying because my legs are broken? Or is it because no one is doing fire sacrifices anymore? Because of which people are suffering from famine and drought and all those kind of things. And he asked many similar questions. And one of the questions was also, are you lamenting the departure of Lord Krishna from this planet? So Mother Earth said yes to all of your questions. Yes, all of the above, but especially the separation from Lord Krishna. And then she said, you're asking about me. You yourself look in very bad shape. You used to stand firmly on 4 legs, but now you're standing weakly on just 1 leg. So as they were chatting, King Parikshit arrived just in time to see Kali, and as I was saying before, dressed like a king, but acting like Shudra, beating the cow and the bull up with a club. And Bhagavatam says, as if the cow and the bull had no owner, and there was no protector. And he says, the king said, I'm the protector, I'm the owner. And he noticed that the bull looks completely terrified. Bhagavatam describes he was actually urinating, standing on 1 leg out of fear. And the cow was crying and is still being beaten on her legs by this guy, the master of Kali. Immediately, King Parikshit drew his sword and called out, stop! How dare you dress like a king and attack the creatures in my kingdom? And he turned to the cow and the bull and he assured them of his protection. And he said to Kali, I don't care who you are. but you are going to be killed by me because you have caused my subjects to suffer. Believe it or not.
Parikshit also understood the image of cows and bull that they were talking.
Yes, so Parikshit understood that cow was the Mother Earth.
No, the language they were talking.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
understood their language.
Yes, so my wife is saying that Parikshit Maharaj actually understood the language of the cow and the bull. So he understood what they were talking about. So, as I was saying, Parikshit Maharaj told Kali that I'm going to kill you because you're causing my people, my subjects to suffer. And Kali was actually shaking, trembling with fear of Parikshit Maharaj. So he quickly threw out his royal dress that he was wearing, and he fell at the feet of the king, and he started begging for his life. He said, please, please, spare me, spare my life. I surrender to you. So at that, Parikshit Maharaj lowered his sword, and he said, I cannot kill a person who surrendered to me. It's fine, I'll spare your life, but you must leave my kingdom right now. If I allow you to pose as a leader, then the irreligion will become rampant. And all sorts of cheating and quarreling and the greediness and vanity on and on and on will be prominent everywhere. I cannot allow them. So get out of my kingdom. Well, when Kali heard that, I should say Kali, not Kali. Kali heard that. He bowed his head down and he said, but my dear king, where shall I live? You rule the entire world. There is no place where you don't rule. So I'm your subject also. I also deserve your protection. So at least grant me a place of residence. So Parikshit glared, like he literally glared at Kali, who was literally trembling. And Parikshit Maharaj knew this is Krishna's arrangement. Kali has arrived. He can't do anything about this. But he also knew that in the age of Kali, there's one good thing. Krishna, what was Kirtana Deva Krishnasya, what's that? Mukta Sangas Paramujit. That in the age of Kali, lots of faults, but one great quality. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, we can go back home to God. So he wanted to welcome Kali Yuga and not welcome Kali Yuga. So he said, okay, fine. I'll allow you to make your residence in the places of gambling, intoxication, prostitution, and animal stalking. So I'm going to ask you, how do these four places relate to the four pillars of religion, and also the four regulative principles? How do they relate?
Austerity, gambling, intoxication will destroy austerity, and then mercy will be destroyed by meat eating, and cleanliness will be destroyed by illicit sex, and truth will be destroyed by gambling.
Gambling. Yes. Yes. So this is how they relate. So basically the four regulative principles lead us to the protection of dharmic principles and the four pillars of religion. If we don't follow the regulative principles, we break the rules of religion. Okay, is that connection clear? Somebody say yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, all right. So now Kali said, okay, I got the four places, but he was still looking very dejected. And the king said, what's the matter with you now? And Kali said, my dear king, there is no such place in your kingdom where gambling, intoxication, prostitution, or animal slaughter is going on. So I still have no place to go. So please, can you give me somewhere else to stay? And the king said, okay, fine. You may stay wherever the gold is hoarded. So then Kali thanked King because he knew now he's got many places to go. Because gold was coveted by everyone, it still is. It's coveted by everyone. And wherever it was stored, it created envy, it created enmity, and all sorts of other sins. So he was very happy that I got more places than I need. And he left feeling very satisfied with himself. So after Kali left, King Parikshit tended to both the cow and the bull. He restored the bull's legs, and he felt confident. As long as I'm ruling, Kali will not dare attack any of my subjects, be they human or non-human. And he continued his rule of piety, charity, religiosity, and all those kind of things.
In his crowd.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Kali went on his crown.
This later. Sorry? Okay, anyway. So some time went by, and once King Parikshit decided to go hunting. And he was doing this for a long time and became very thirsty. So he started looking for a place where he could get some water. And from a distance, he saw a hut. She decided to go there. It turned out to be the hermitage of a rishi by the name of Shamik, who was meditating, and the king asked for some water. But the sage was in so much rapt meditation, he not only not offer water, he failed to even receive the king properly because he wasn't like samadhi, he was somewhere else. And, again, Lord Krishna's arrangement, King Parikshit was normally a very patient person and very cool by nature. And he was extremely respectful to all the sages. But that very king became angry. That's Krishna's plan. That's Krishna's arrangement. He became so angry, was literally overcome by the anger and, of course, the thirst. He picked up a dead snake that was lying somewhere nearby. And he literally garlanded the sage with a dead snake, and he walked out. Of course, when he got to his palace, he felt very distressed. He said, I've done something wrong. I've committed an offense against an innocent sage who was meditating. And he said, I know something bad is going to happen. Some kind of a calamity is going to befall me. Well, so it happened. This king Shamik had a son, a young son. His name was Shingi. He was playing with his friends in a lake at that time, and somebody told him what has happened. So he got very angry, and he cursed Maharaj Parikshit to die within 7 days from a snake bird's bite. Taksha. Well, when somebody told Shamik Rishi that this is what happened, Shamik Rishi got very upset. Not with the king, but with his son. Why would you do that? Don't you know who this king is? How he's protecting us? And on and on and on. But the son said, too late. I cannot take back my curse. So Shamik Rishi sent one of his disciples to inform King Parikshit of this curse. King Parikshit received the news, and he had the power, believe it or not, because he was such a great devotee of Krishna, he could nullify this curse. But he did not do that. Rather, he said, this is a benediction from Krishna to me to perfect my life, and I'm going to take this. So in other words, whatever comes to me is Krishna's mercy, so I'm not going to reject it, including this curse. So immediately, he decided to renounce his life, completely retired from being a king. He made his son Janmeja the king, and he went to the banks of river Ganges so he could concentrate his mind on Krishna and fast till death. Well, the news spread very fast. Much faster than internet can do. And all sorts of sages kind of arrived on the plea of making a pilgrim's journey. And like some names are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, like Atri, Chavan, Bhragu, Vashishta, Parashar, Vishwamit, let's see who else. Agast, yes, Agast Muni, Angira Muni, Parashuram, Devala, Gautam, Bharadwaj, and
Narad Muni.
Narad Muni showed up. Many demigods showed up. Many saintly kids showed up. And I don't know how many of you have been to Mayapur. There's a place called Narsingapalli. Anybody been there? Narsingapalli? Okay, so, okay, I see one person.
I've been there.
Okay, so 2 or 3 people. Okay, so in there's a very small, like literally tiny temple. Made literally maybe by like 2 feet by 2 feet. There is a deity of Lord Shiva.
Yeah.
He is almost lying backwards on a bird, the swan bird. Who's swan bird in this case? Anybody knows? The carrier of Lord Brahma. So who's the carrier of Lord Shiva?
Nandi.
Nandi, yes.
Bull.
And Lord Shiva said, my Nandi is too slow. I need to get there before Bhagavatam Katha starts. So he went to Lord Brahma and said, please let me borrow your carrier. And he sat before Lord Brahma could say yes. He sat on the swan, and the swan took off. So as it took off, the momentum carries it back head backwards. So that's the pose in which the deity is, almost half lying on his back. So anyway, my point is that even Lord Shiva was so eager to hear Bhagavatam that he did not want to take the risk of riding his own carrier. Too slow. I don't want to miss a single sentence. So he showed up. So very important people showed up. And they were all seated. And once they were all sat down, the king welcomed them all and he announced his decision to fast until death, and he sat down. So all these sages, they appreciate his decision. And they said, we will sit with you until you leave your body and go home back to garden. So at that time, Parikshit Maharaj asked all the sages present there one question: what should be the duty of everyone in all circumstances, but especially of those who are just about to die? And just as he was asking this question, another personality showed up. The famous Shuk Dev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva. He showed up. And as soon as he showed up, now remember, he's like 16 years old and he's walking naked. He was so renounced, he never bothered putting any clothes on. Bhagavatam describes that young girls and boys were making fun of him. They were laughing at him, pointing at him, throwing little stones at him. He was not bothered. But when these girls saw all the saints stand up, respect, offering their obeisances, they ran away. They said, oh, big mistake. They ran away. And King Parikshit offered him a seat of honor. You all see the picture of King Parikshit sitting with Shuk Dev Goswami. And King Parikshit repeated his question. And then he said, I also want to know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship. And what is it that he should not do? So those were the beginning questions, in the answer of which Shuk Dev Goswami spoke the entire Srimad Bhagavatam to the king in 7 days. And throughout he narrated to the king the path of devotional service to the Lord, or what we call Bhakti Yoga. Thus the king perfected his life by absorbing his thoughts in the divine pastimes of the Lord. Now, something very interesting. Among the great sages gathered, there was Suta Goswami also. He was sitting somewhere in the back because he was young and not young, but he considered himself junior. And Shuk Dev Goswami saw him. And he pointed at him. He said, come in the front. You sit in the front. Like everybody was saying, what's going on? And Sutta Goswami was like shocked. He was about to faint. But anyway, he got up, sat in the front. And Shuk Dev Goswami said, I called you to the front. So you listen to the entire narration of Srimad Bhagavatam very carefully, because soon you will be narrating the same thing to the sages of Naimisharanya. And that's how Sutta Goswami got the information on Srimad Bhagavatam. Which now brings us to the story of how the version of Srimad Bhagavatam that we know and see was narrated. Okay. Time check. I'm sorry, it's 9:30 already, but it'll be 15 more minutes. Is that okay with you? Yeah. Once again, I invite you to leave.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't manage my time very well. Okay. So there's a place called Naimisharanya. It's actually about 100 kilometers from a place called Lucknow, which is my hometown in UP. And this whole history about this village, this place, so I won't get into that. But this is the place where for millenniums, the sages have gathered and performed fire sacrifices, etc. So this time also, about I think 60,000 sages gathered. Is it 80,000? 80,000 sages gathered, and to perform a great 1,000 years fire sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees, for the well-being of the entire mankind. But after 1,000 years of sacrifices, they became frustrated. And they were looking for shelter of somebody when Sutta Goswami showed up. Does anybody know the name of Sutta Goswami? Sutta again is a title. Not title, to say that's caste.
Romaharshan?
Son of Romaharshan. But that's...
Yeah, that's not the name though. Ugrashrava.
Yes.
Ugrashrava. So Ugrashrava Sutta Goswami. And also, what is a sutta, by the way? Does anybody know what is a sutta?
Sutta is the sun.
No. Because Romaharshan was sutta also.
No.
Romaharshan was sutta, right? Karna was called sutta, or Sutpatra actually. Right? So what is sutta?
Sutta means low, like lower. Like...
The chariot rider.
Okay, so you are all half right. So basically, a Sut is a person born of a Kshatriya man and Brahmin wife.
Oh.
See, the proper marriage is supposed to be other way around. Higher caste man can marry a lower caste woman. But when it is other way around, that a lower caste man is marrying a higher caste woman, this is called Vilom, which is upside down. So children of that couple are known as Sutta. And so typically they have both the Kshatriya blood and Brahmin blood. So because of the Kshatriya blood, they become the chariot drivers, they take care of the horses and all these kind of things. And because of the Brahmin blood, they become the narrators of the Puranas. So they have both those qualities. So therefore Sutta Goswami, who was actually a disciple of Shuk Dev Goswami, was fully conversant with all the Puranas, including Srimad Bhagavatam. So when the sages saw him, sages of Naimisharanya saw him, they were very happy. They got up and offered their obeisances and gave the seat that his father was sitting on before. And they said, my dear Sutta Goswami, the age of Kali has started. And the characteristic of the age of this Kali is that people are going to be lazy, misguided, unlucky, quarrelsome, and above all, disturbed. So, manda sumanda matyo, manda bhagyo hi upadruta. Right? And so they said, we want to help these people who are lazy, misguided, unlucky, quarrelsome, and always disturbed. So then they asked 6 questions. What I'm going to do is share the screen so you can see the 6 questions. Otherwise, it becomes a little confusing. So give me a second, please. Okay, there. So the 6 questions they asked. What is the ultimate good for all people? What is the essential prescribed duty that will fully satisfy the hearts of people? For what purpose did Lord Krishna appear? Sorry, bad English there. What purpose did Lord Krishna appear in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva? Please describe Krishna's pastimes. Why does Krishna appear as incarnations? What are his pastimes in different incarnations? And in whom did religious principles take shelter after Lord Krishna left this planet? So you can, I'm going to stop for a second. You can read these questions again. These are 6 very important questions. The entire Srimad Bhagavatam is basically answering these questions. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'll go back to basically, I'm going to very briefly answer, I shouldn't say, repeat the answer that they got, but details we'll do later on. So, what's the ultimate good for all the people? You could rephrase that question, say, is there any way an ordinary man can easily become freed from the misery of this material world and achieve what I would call eternal happiness? So actually, sorry?
By chanting Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Shilpi, all right. So, actually, I'm going to also, I'm also going to start giving you from now on some verse numbers, the canto number, chapter number, the verse number, and ask you to, over the next 7 days, read them, those specific verses and the purport. That'll give you much better appreciation of what you heard. Okay, so this is first canto, second chapter, text number 6, 1.2.6.
Canto, second chapter.
6.
Text number 6. Savai Punsam Paro Dharmo. I'm sorry, Shilpi, you were saying?
I just have a question. So when you say cantos, does that mean verses? Because I don't have Bhagavatam.
So, thank you for asking. Yes. So the whole entire book of Srimad Bhagavatam, which consists of 18,000 verses,
Correct,
has been divided into 12 parts. Each part is called a canto. In Hindi, it's called skand, but basically it's a part.
So those 18,000 verses are further divided into parts?
No. Are contained in 12 parts.
Contained in 12 parts, okay.
Each part is called a canto.
Oh, I see, okay. So canto is different than a verse.
Correct. So I'm coming to that. So we have 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam consists of 12 cantos, 12 parts. Each canto has a number of chapters. Overall, the entire Bhagavatam has 335 chapters. 335. So each, and it's not an even distribution. So each canto has a number of chapters. And then each chapter has multiple verses, anywhere from 30 to 100 or more. So when we say first canto, second chapter, text number 6, we're saying take the canto 1 out, open chapter 2, and look for text number 6 or shloka number 6.
Okay, I got it.
1.2.6.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that question because I'm sure other people
Yeah, I
won't be.
was not sure if canto and verses are the same thing.
That's also my opportunity to plug that each of you should get a set of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, all right. So 1.2.6 talks about this and says the highest goal is to perform uninterrupted and unmotivated. Unmotivated means I don't want anything for me. It's all for you. Uninterrupted means not for an hour I chant and 23 hours I have great time materially. No, uninterrupted. Incessant, 24/7. And unmotivated, not looking for something for me. It's all about you, my Lord. Because it says That kind of loving service, the only thing that will satisfy the soul, our soul, which is us. And only the soul's happiness is eternal. The bodily happiness is temporary. And this is called prema bhakti, or loving devotional service, which can be achieved only through the process of sadhana, which all of us are doing that. And when we achieve that, we get to see the form, the qualities, and sweetness of the Lord. And when we see that, we become materially detached. So yeah, it'll take time. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes sometimes many lifetimes. But we have to get there. However, you can ask, and the sages actually asked, well, what about that interval where you are trying to achieve the loving devotional service, but you haven't achieved it yet? You still have to leave this world. So what do you do then? And he said, you perform your regular duties of varnashram, but you keep trying to get to that stage of prema bhakti. And therefore, we must organize our life that we can make time to hear about Lord Krishna. So somebody said, what about dharma, artha, kama, and moksha? The religiosity, the economic development, the sense gratification, and liberation. And he said, that is there only to encourage the materialistic people to act morally, but does not lead to the highest goal, prema bhakti. And therefore, it is rejected. So that was the short answer to the first question. Second question was, what's the essential prescribed duty that will fully satisfy the hearts of the people? And he says, the scriptures prescribe many duties, but the summary of all scripture is Bhagavad Bhakti, the devotional service to the Lord. And he says the devotee association will give us the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and serving the devotees will lead us to be attached to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, we should hear about Krishna, and we should hear about him all the time. Srimad Bhagavatam says, Nityam Bhagavat Sevya. Every day we should read the Bhagavatam book and serve the Bhagavatam devotee. If we do that, we'll get rid of the mode of passion, mode of ignorance, and very soon our mode of goodness will become mode of pure goodness. Our doubts will be removed and Krishna will appear in our heart. The next question was, why did Lord Krishna appear and perform so many human-like pastimes, like, dancing with the gopis, stealing butter and all that? Because these activities are so different from the other incarnations. Like, Lord Ram never did that. Lord Nrsimhadev never did that. Lord Kumar never did that, the stealing of the butter or crawling on the floors. So why did he appear? And the Shuk Dev Goswami, he said that by appearing and doing these pastimes, he gave an opportunity for those pastimes to be included in Srimad Bhagavatam, so that the living entities, human beings, when they read Srimad Bhagavatam, they become attracted to Krishna, his name, his qualities, his pastimes, and they surrender to him. And when they surrender to him, they become eligible to become freed from the material world. And that's the reason for Krishna's appearing and performing these pastimes. Next question was, why did he come as incarnations? And he said, well, first of all, you should understand, incarnations are simply expansions of Krishna. But Krishna himself is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And different people like different qualities. So if you like wars and all that, maybe you like Lord Ram. If you like something that's majestic, maybe you'd like Lord Nrsimhadev, and on and on and on. So he's saying It comes in different incarnations for the single purpose of attracting the people towards him. And of course, the establishment of religious principle, etc., is there. But main idea is to attract people to him so they can get out of this material. Okay, and the last question was, in whom did the religious principles take shelter after Krishna left? And this, he said, Srimad Bhagavatam. He said, Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. As I was saying before, he said, it's like the sun is rising as the sun of Krishna's presence setting, and the darkness of avidya, ignorance, is being removed. So in other words, Srimad Bhagavatam actually represents the body of Lord Krishna. It's not different from Krishna. Reading with Bhagavatam is like associating with Krishna. So very brief, probably confusing answers to those 6 questions. And that brings to conclusion today's session, minus any questions you have that I'll take.
Prabhuji, I just wanted to reconfirm these answers are given by Sutta Goswami and not Shuk Goswami, right?
That is correct. Right now, Shuk Dev Goswami has not appeared yet on the scene.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, what I have done today is basically covered, I would say, more than 3/4 of the first canto, which is only book this thick, just this thick. So obviously I had to, really summarize, but I've covered all the essential points, the past lives, except a few that I'll cover next week. Okay. Any questions or comments?
Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Damodar Prabhu.
So the thing was, like, many people say, but I have, like, in our own ISKCON, there are 2 different people saying 2 different, two different perspectives. One group of people say that Kali Yuga sat in the crown of Parikshit Maharaj, but then another says that no, that's not possible because Parikshit Maharaj already defeated Kali Yuga. So Kali Yuga targeted that Kacha Brahmin, Shringi. So which one is like more appropriate? Because some people believe that Kali Yuga sat in his crown. Some people say he targeted Shringi.
Yes, I've heard of both as well. What makes more sense to me is that Parikshit Maharaj was too well educated, too high level a devotee to be influenced by Kali Yuga. And therefore, it makes sense to me that it was Krishna's arrangement. It's just like it is impossible under normal circumstances for Arjuna to be bewildered. Yes. It is impossible for Lord Brahma to be bewildered. But because of the arrangement Lord Krishna had made, they all became bewildered. And same thing for Parikshit Maharaj. I personally don't believe that the crown had anything to do with it.
Yeah, neither do I. Yeah.
This Krishna wanted Srimad Bhagavatam to be manifested for our good. So he took a devotee, put him into so much difficulty. But in the process, he glorified Parikshit Maharaj as well. Like how glorified is he today? Right? More than his own father. Yeah. Way more than his own father, who was also no ordinary person. Right? So yeah, that's what I believe.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
It was a lot of information today.
Yeah, I was thinking that it might be too much. My challenge, I guess, is that if I don't do this, then it'll be many more weeks. And I don't know how many of you will be able to do that. So I'm trying to find that balance. But I appreciate the feedback because I try to adjust it next week and do a little.
Oh, you did an excellent job explaining it. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. But the thing is, if you can't digest it all, then it's a problem, right? So I would rather tell you less and have you retain it than tell you more and not retain it. So that's my goal.
All your lectures are getting recorded, right?
Yes.
Because then you can always go back and listen to it.
Yes, you can do that.
Prabhu, so you did the part of like Uttara's prayers, but like, are you going to like continue further with like Queen Kunti's prayers and all?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm not getting into the details of Uttara's prayers. I will not do all the 25 or so verses of the Kunti, but I'll do few. Same thing with Bhishma Pitama, I'll do some. So, and those are only two things actually missing from first canto that I have not covered. So that's what I will cover next week, and then move on to second canto. Okay. So once again, my goal is to get you interested in reading it. I'm just being very honest with you. I hope it's not a selfish goal, but that's the goal. That I want each one of you to pick up.
Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Best goal.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Any comments, questions? Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your giving the attention.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Prabhu.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank
Hare
you so
Krishna.
much.
Very nice class.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Prabhuji, I did not want to waste anyone's time. I want to ask you a question.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't want to take anyone's time. I just want to ask you a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Prabhuji, as you were mentioning that, Narad Muni, he could not forget when he saw Krishna. So, the same thing happens with devotees as well. When they come into Krishna consciousness, the kind of the bliss, the kind of the exuberance they have, that is unparalleled. And then over the years, they keep hankering and they are always so very, wanting that kind of a bliss that they get in those initial days. So is it the same kind of a situation, or how does one get back to that same bliss that one gets in the initial years of Krishna consciousness?
So take that bliss that you're describing, multiply it by 10 million. And that's the kind of bliss Narad Muni was feeling. But other than that, your point is very valid. And I'll tell you, sometimes we don't appreciate the bliss we are feeling until it's taken away from us. So for example, I have a number of devotee friends who moved away from Toronto to places like Saskatoon, Regina, or other remote places like Whitehorse, Yukon, and they call me crying, literally crying, that we're suffering from lack of devotee association. We're suffering from lack of taking darshan of the deities. They say we are missing Radha Chaitanya Gopinath more than we can explain. On and on and on. We're missing the devotee association, Bhakti Viksha programs, home programs, all those kind of things. And they are probably feeling a little bit more than we who have moved out of Toronto for a while, or Vancouver, or whatever, where you have a large temple. But we start taking it for granted. So only, it's like there's a very famous song, you don't know what you got till it's gone. So we take Krishna, we take Krishna's devotees, we take Krishna's temple for granted until it's taken away from us. It's like these days, due to COVID, most of us are not able to go to the temple. And we're feeling something that we have not felt before.
That's
right?
true.
So the same thing with Narad Muni, I mean. This feeling of shame, of separation.
All this while, all these years, I got an opportunity to go to Vrindavan in the month of Kartik, that it became so normal. For the first time, when I was away here, I realized that value of going to Vrindavan in the month of Kartik, going for a Prabhupada disappearance.
I feel your pain because, yeah, I feel your pain because I'm the same way. I used to go every year. This year
Mostly everybody.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, a lot of us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roji. Thank you
Sure,
so much.
welcome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.